Good evening and welcome to the world premiere of the new film by Barry Jenkins, If Beale Street Could Talk. My name is Cameron Bailey. I am the artistic director here at TIFF. I am so pleased to see you all here to be the very first audience in the world to see Barry's new movie. Barry's back there with some friends. We're going to bring him out in a minute, but first I want to do what we always do when we gather, which is to remember and recognize where we are, the land that we're on. This is the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat First Nations. They have been on this land and looking after this land for all of us for thousands of years, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work in this community. We're very pleased to be able to present films to you in this magnificent theater, the Visa Screening Room at the Princess of Wales Theatre. Big thanks to Visa Canada for making that possible. And thanks also to Annapurna and to E1 for providing us with a film. Great partners of ours year in, year out. You know, when I saw this film, we were able to see it several weeks ago, and one of the things that struck me is that, you know, you see a lot of love in movies. You see love stories, you see people falling in love, you see people overcoming obstacles to love, you see them running through airports, all of that. But there's another level. There's the idea that movies can be love. There's the idea of a film as itself an act of love, with the compassion, the insight, the generosity, the clarity of what true love is. And in my mind, there's really one filmmaker who makes his films as acts of love to all of us, and that is Barry Jenkins. Barry was here in 2008 with his first feature, Medicine for Melancholy. And then, just to be ornery, he waited 8 years to bring us his second film. I'm never going to forgive him for that. That film was Moonlight. It screened at the festival and went on to transform a lot of people and, of course, won that Academy Award for Best Picture. Barry's followed up Moonlight with this film, If Beale Street Could Talk, and maybe because he likes Toronto so much, he cast Stephan James, Toronto's own Stephan James, in one of the lead roles, alongside such a terrific cast, and he is here to introduce the film to you this evening. Please join me in welcoming Barry Jenkins.
Thank you all for, holy shit, that's a lot of y'all. Thank y'all for coming out to apparently the world premiere of If Beale Street Could Talk, the world premiere of a James Baldwin adaptation in his native tongue, set in his native home, the home of Harlem. We like to say that there's a Beale Street in every city in America, and North America, and South America, and Asia, everywhere on the damn planet. There's probably a Beale Street on the moon. But tonight, I want y'all to make Beale Street right here at the Princess Well Theater. Now, it takes a village to raise a child, and it took a village to raise this child, and so I want to bring out the village that raised If Beale Street Could Talk. Please give a welcome to producers Adela Romansky and Sarah Murphy of Pastel, producers Jeremy Kleiner and Dee Dee Gardner of Plan B, producer extraordinaire of Annapurna, my home, Megan Ellison. We also want to bring out Brian Tyree Henry. I'm on a cast now. We also want to bring out Mr. Coleman Domingo, the illustrious Regina King, Toronto's own Stephan James, And introducing a woman whom I love, Kiki Lane. This movie was a labor of love, and I think in that labor we wanted to translate what it feels to be a black person. This was written in 1974, a black person on the continuum between 74 and today. It's a mixture of love and then in the very next moment of pain, of strife, but somehow we're all up here on this damn stage and we made this fucking movie. You know what I mean? Because you can't break us. And we were just backstage in a prayer circle, and I've never done that before. And Coleman said something in my ear, the words carried from Mr. Baldwin to this room, which is love brought you here. I'm so happy to have y'all all here. I hope you enjoy the show. We'll be here for a Q&A afterwards. Much love.
And we have a whole bunch of cast to bring out for you tonight, too. We have Kiki Lane. Stefan James. Coleman Domingo. Regina King. And Brian Tyree Henry.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. I really don't want to cut this short, but we don't have too much time because this did start a little late. So I want to make sure we can get some questions in for the Barry and the cast. So you are the first to take on the immense feat of adapting a piece of James Baldwin fiction as a feature film. How did you go about this, and what was imperative for you to show to the audience about his story?
Yeah, it started at the same moment that Moonlight started, to be honest. In the summer of 2013, I was disappointed in myself for not creating things, so I got whatever money I could find and went to Europe, and I wrote the screenplay for Moonlight and the screenplay for this, If Beale Street Could Talk, over the course of 6 weeks. And I always saw them as this pairing. You know, Moonlight is a depiction of the family I grew up in, and I felt like If Beale Street Could Talk, you know, with Coleman Domingo and Regina King playing my parents, as the family that I maybe could have had or wished I would have had. So they felt like a pairing. And it's funny, because I didn't have the rights when I wrote this, so there was no pressure. I was like, I'm just gonna enjoy adapting James Baldwin. And then afterwards, I was like, okay, now let me chase this shit down. And thankfully, because of Moonlight and everything, the estate, which they were familiar with my first film, Medicine for Melancholy, which played here. It wasn't Moonlight that got this, it was Medicine for Melancholy, of all things. They gave me their blessing.
That's fantastic. And so you have Baldwin's words in the narration and in this powerful dialogue, but there's so much felt in the unspoken moments and the space that you give your characters. How did you emphasize creating these performances with your cast?
I mean, part of it was casting. I mean, just look at these amazing faces, and I think, and the biggest thing for me was, just like with Moonlight, because I wrote them at the same time, this quality in their eyes, but they also have amazing hearts. We were all just backstage crying in another prayer circle. It was just, once we found the right folks, it was empowering them. I mean, you know, Brian loves Baldwin probably more than anybody I've ever met in my life. And so when he got on set, he understood what it was, and everybody on the stage understood what it was.
Absolutely. And, well, I mean, we could talk about Daniel's scene, that most amazing scene, when he talks about, when you feel this fear. And I found this quote from the original New York Times review of the book, and from Joyce Carol Oates, and she said, "The most devastating weapon of the oppressor is that of psychological terror." And I feel like this is a theme that's throughout the film, but especially in that scene at the kitchen table with Daniel speaking. And yeah, so if you just want to talk about these specific moments.
Yeah, if
Want
Stefano
me to
or
talk
Brian
about
wanna
it?
talk to it.
Yeah.
Brian, you take it, man.
I am so emotional right now. I think what was so important to show, and I think that what Barry wanted to showcase is this sense of connection between these two men, and how it feels like the chips are constantly stacked against us, and we're sitting at a table that's a bathtub with wood on it, and we're talking about just what it's like to leave your home and know that people, bring it together, Brian. To know that there are people who don't want you to win, to know that people are going to hate you because of your skin, to know that people are going to hate you because you are a black man in the society. And I think Fonnie and Daniel, just the unspoken moments. This is my first time saying it, by the way, so I'm just like, woo. But that moment, doing that moment with Barry was so, I can't even put it into words. Like you felt the chill in our blood, and you felt the anger, and you felt the sorrow, but then you see the love, and you see the friendship, and you see the coming together of this communion, and of just like the welcoming home of this man, and the bringing us back together. I mean, just like, and it exists. That's the thing, Barry, that I have to say is that black love is fucking beautiful. My God, like, it's beautiful. I don't think I have ever seen it like that, in the unspoken, in the parents and the siblings and the friendship and the food and the laughter and the, Barry, like, you have no idea how bad we needed and yearned for this, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for that.
Thank you, Barry.
And we absolutely need to talk about love and family and just kind of putting together this beautiful family and especially that announcement scene. It's just so powerful, the dialogue so sharp. And how did you kind of build that? And
We found a brownstone in Harlem, actually, that was, typical story, was about to be flipped. That was bought by a very nice gentleman who was not from Harlem, and he was in the process of flipping it, and we told him, don't flip it yet. We want to actually take it back 40 years. He's like, you want to take it back 40 years? But then we were like, oh, it's the director of Moonlight, and you can tell people they made this James Baldwin movie in your house after you flip it. and so we got the house, but it was kind of this thing where it was like the Hunts, Coleman and Regina and Kiki, they were all kind of living there, and Stefan would come over and visit, more or less. And so it was this really beautiful thing. The patina, our production designer, Mark Freeberg, is an amazing, amazing, amazing production designer. He just went to the end of the earth to make sure you walked in that place and you felt like you were walking in your grandma's house on April 23rd, 1973. And so once we built the whole thing, we kind of just pulled the cord and let the actors kind of have their way, And I remember Michael Beach, his birthday was on a day when we were shooting in the house, and everybody just broke out singing Stevie Wonder, Happy Birthday. And it was like, are we making a movie or are we just having fun? Are we doing both? We're kind of doing both.
And then, so I just wanted to talk to Regina about this scene where she goes to visit Victoria and kind of addressing the ethnic other that is so powerful in this story. When you reach out and you touch across and say daughter, and her visceral reaction to that. Tell me about that scene and preparing.
Well, those were Baldwin's words. Actually, reading the script is funny because I talked to Barry about it, and I was like, daughter? Really? And he was like, yeah, try it. If it doesn't work, and we're there, and it felt like that was the only way Sharon could try to get to her, to appeal to truly the woman within, because every woman has been a daughter, and like Brian, I'm still a little stunned right now because it's my first time seeing it. But daughter was the only name to call her to try to make the connection. It made perfect sense in the moment.
Absolutely. And so I have to come now to Stefan and Kiki and your beautiful romance, this absolutely incredible performance that you have between glass. And I just wanted to talk to you guys about building this relationship and the chemistry.
Well, I mean, it was, everybody, this is Kiki Lane's first feature film. Give it up for Kiki Lane one time.
Yeah, man.
Man, ever since we had a chemistry read in New York a few months before we started filming it, and I really had a connection with Kiki off the bat. She's such a pure artist, and it's something that she really can't teach. And she was able to find her way in this film, and we were able to find our way together. I'm so happy I was, with you on this ride, Kiki. You're incredible, and it meant so much to me. It meant really a lot to me to grow with you in this process.
Same. It was really special working with Stefan, just because it was my first feature and role of this size, and he just has such a confidence on set that I think it helped me to grow more confident and just feeling comfortable being on set and like I should be here, and so I'm very thankful for that as well.
And so one line that resonated, I think, for a lot of people that I spoke with after seeing this film was Dave Franco's line when they go to the apartment and he says, "I am my mother's son." That's
yeah, it's crazy because it's not in the book, and it's one of those things where Dave was there and we were talking about it, and I don't know why, it just felt like, one, that character, again, the whole thing of this process is about fidelity to the material. And I thought the book is so angry in places, so angry and a bit bitter. And yet this character Levy appears, and it's like, oh my God, here's like this Jewish hippie dude who's kind of dope. And,
it's all about love.
And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna give y'all this spot, and y'all can hang out and do what y'all want. And I was like, why is that? And then I started to drill down into it, and I felt like it had to be something tied to the mother. There's all these mothers in this film. Tisha's a mother, Sharon's a mother, Mrs. Hunt is also a mother. They're all very different. And as Dave and I were talking about the script, I remember he did the first take, and Dave Franco does a certain kind of film, and he did the first take a certain kind of way. And then I said to him, hey, your mother, she's passed. And he just got everything. He just clicked into it. And then that line, when he said it, it just had so much meaning, because there are no differences between us and them. There is no us and them truly, unless up here we allow ourselves for there to be an us and them. And in that performance, I think you see Dave Franco go to a place where, it's not a white savior. It is a dude who can connect to another person. And when you do it that way, then the shit works. That's all.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I gotta stop cursing, man.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a little bit of time for some audience questions. So I'll do one right down right here.
Hi, Barry. Thank you so much for the film. It's a masterpiece. It's an incredible accomplishment.
I'm glad they couldn't hear that part, but cool.
I'll repeat the question to the audience.
Questions about the music. I know that you used original score with Nicholas and also song score, music supervisor. What was the process in fusing those together to sort of reflect their relationship and the time?
Yes, so the question was about this incredible score and the composition and kind of bringing it together with the story and the time.
Yeah, the score was done by Nicholas Patel, who also did the score for Moonlight. And I actually will say right now, I'll take a moment, our cinematographer, James Laxon, is here. I see him right in front of me. Can you stand up, bro? Can you stand up, bro? Our editor, Joy McMillan, is here also. Joy, can you stand up, please?
Big game, James.
And so people from our post team, I think Israel Vasquez. Israel, can you stand up, bro? Stand up, bro. Stand up, bro. so anyway, I just gotta say, when Nick and I started the score, Baldwin writes actually a lot of music in the book, and we started to pull some of that music from the book, but that music is very expensive because it's owned by major corporate labels now, and so we backed off that a little bit. But there's this notion of jazz. Baldwin's father was born in New Orleans, and he was a jazz man. And so we started out by pulling all this jazz, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, and the scene with Brian and Stefan, that piece of score is called PTSD, of course. And we take Kinda Blue and we basically blend it with our score. But Nick and I started out working with horns, and the horns were great, but you knew what you were feeling. And so in the score, we have a lot of cellos playing jazz horns. It's like cellos playing jazz sort of notes and jazz registers. And it just became this thing that evolved as we cut the picture. And my favorite piece of score is there's this moment where Regina is taking off this wig in the mirror, and it's like, it's a takeaway from the piece of score that accompanies one of the stages of love that Tish and Fonnie go through. And there was just this really organic process of Nick and I watching the film and taking the energy from the actors and putting it into the score. The piece where the officer accosts these guys at the grocery store is called Hypertension. There's a lot of shit that black folks deal with that's named in the score in this film.
Incredible. Okay, next question. Yes, just in the middle here.
I'm just wondering, in the scenes where Tish and Fonnie are alone or in the apartment, they're very intimate. And on the other side of the camera, how many people are there?
Everybody, there's like 100.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was, it was...
Sorry, just to repeat the question for everyone in the house, it was about the intimacy that you achieved with Fonnie and Tish on screen, and then what was it like behind the camera?
It was a regular-sized crew, much bigger than the Moonlight crew, for sure, because we had more resources, but what we try to do is make sure the crew is a part of the filmmaking process, and so, not that the crew was hanging out playing spades with the actors, but, you know, that the actors don't feel like there's no us and them. We are all here trying to tell this story, trying to build this thing. So, yeah, there was only 2 or 3 days where we kicked everybody off set, you know, but otherwise it was like everybody understood what we were there to do, and they were a part of the process, not outside it.
Absolutely. Okay, do we have a question? Oh, over here. Yep. So her heart feels full and broken at the same time. I think a lot of us can relate.
How does it feel to be walking in the words of Mr. Baldwin?
The question was for the cast. How
Mr.
do you
Domingo,
feel?
how does it feel to walk in the words of Mr. Baldwin?
I have been such a fan of Mr. Baldwin's for so many years, and that I honestly feel that Mr. Baldwin chose all of us. I believe that Mr. Baldwin chose Barry Jenkins, chose Annapurna, chose all of us. Because we all, as I've gotten to know these people, I think we know that Baldwin's words live in us. All that soaring, searing language, all that rage, all that passion, all that love that only Baldwin can write. Baldwin is the Shakespeare of our times.
We have time for one more question. Would you like to choose?
Sure, I can see this dude right here. No pressure, bro. You got the last question.
Everyone's looking at you.
The question is, if there's one scene that just really clicked for all of you, that you knew that this was going to be something big.
Well, it's a complicated question. I think for me, the scene with Brian and Stefan was the one that really solidified what we were doing. Interesting, because that was the last day of production. I'm not saying I was doubting production the whole way through, but that was the last day of production. But here's what I mean. I felt very deeply that this film, even though it's set in 1974, 1973, that it was relevant to today. And I'll tell a story I've never told before. During award season for Moonlight, I was at some big party. It was like the Governor Awards for the Academy. It's an amazing event. It's the event you hear about the least, where they honor all these folks. The woman who cut Lawrence of Arabia, the editor, she received like a Lifetime Achievement Award there. And it's all these cars, everybody's in tuxedos, and there's an after party at the Sunset Tower Hotel. And the Sunset Tower Hotel is this hotel that it's very hard to get in and out of. Like the valet line is very short, so cars come in and they go out, they come in, they go out. So I'm at this party, and I was trying to get to my homeboy Justin Simeon's after party for his show. So I tried to leave the Oscars to go to Dear White People. And my driver, he had a hard time getting in and out of the valet, because you pull up, if your person's not there, you gotta drive out and circle around. And so I come out, and the valet person is just like shocked. And I'm like, bro, what's up? He goes, oh, you shouldn't get in the car with that dude. And I'm like, why? He goes, oh, because when I was out here before, he looked all agitated, and I said to him, what's wrong? He goes, oh, nothing. I'm just sitting around here waiting to pick up this nigger. And then he smiled and said, oh, you know what? He's probably going to get nominated for Best Director. Subtext, but he's still just a nigger. And I was like, and this is when I'm wearing a $5,000 suit. I've just come from the Governor Awards. So if it can happen to me with someone who's driving me, person in power, what the hell you think happens to some dude working a shift at the factory? Or some dude who's walking down the block, And so when we got to that scene, I was like, you know what? This is fucking it, This is it. Everything we've been doing, yes. Because I felt this at the height of my public awareness, whatever. Like, literally said, this dude's probably gonna be nominated for Best Director. Yet he called me that shit right before. So if it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone, and we gotta tell these damn stories.
Yeah, I think Amen.
Thank you guys.
That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey,
Thank
if
you.
you like the film, tell a friend. Tell a friend. Tell a friend.
Yeah, and you can vote for it for the Gross People's Choice Awards at TIFF.net/vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you again
Thank
for
you.
bringing your film to Toronto.